Hello, my name is Craig Voss, and I'm a product manager here at Makino. Today, I'd like to talk to you about Makino Turnkey Engineering Solutions. We're filming at our North American headquarters in Mason, Ohio, where I'm just footsteps away from our integration bay. This integration bay is a 150,000 square foot dedicated space that we use for turnkey and automation activity. As you can see from the picture, we take turnkey work seriously, and it's an integral part of our business and our philosophy at Makino. Before we get started, I want to introduce two subject matter experts that we'll be hearing from during the course of the presentation today. The first is Mike Boyd. He's been with Makino 28 years and involved with our application engineering department as well as project management. The second is Bob Kuzner. He's been with Makino 31 years and has been involved that entire time in our applications group, specifically the work holding aspect of that. So all combined here, we've got 60 years of experience among just two individuals from our team. Let's start by defining what is a turnkey, and more specifically, what is a Makino turnkey. So in Makino's definition, a turnkey is a comprehensive service that deals with all aspects of the project, managed start to finish. Every project consists of a project manager and also a dedicated project team. We run off the process both at Makino and at your facility. And as our Makino promise of performance, we provide guaranteed quality and guaranteed cycle time. All of this comes at a fixed price. Now let's talk about what is not a turnkey. Application engineering assistance can be provided, and it is something that we do on a regular basis. However, it's a little bit different than a turnkey, as it typically applies to new part designs that are likely to change or maybe loosely defined projects. We have a number of ways we can support our customers with application engineering assistance. You can see some of those here, and of course, there's many others. The key point here is that there is a shared responsibility when we provide application engineering assistance, and therefore limited guarantees. Each side provides part of the equation, and we work together to provide the final solution. In this case, we're typically quoting time and material since the deliverables are not as well defined. So when we talk about the turnkey itself, we need to mention some qualifiers. There are certain applicable parts and projects that we need to consider here that are the best fit for an actual turnkey quote and project. So typically we're going to be looking at mature part designs. These would be parts that have complete and final 2D drawings as well as 3D models. Typically these parts are derived from near net shape raw materials in the form of castings, maybe forgings, or even extrusions. And often a turnkey will be provided in response to an RFQ from the customer. So this RFQ would detail all of the requirements for the project and the deliverables that are necessary. Let's hear from Mike Boyd about Makino's turnkey philosophy and promise of performance.
Well, part of every turnkey or integration project, we guarantee two things. And this is all, part of a promise of performance. We guarantee quality or we guarantee cycle time. And the quality level can be anything from meeting part print to a statistical runoff to verify dimensions for a part runoff. The statistical runoff, the capability numbers that we typically hit are a 1.33 or 1.67 CPK number. To take it to that level, it requires a little bit more in-depth review and design around the process and the cutting tools, the programming. Sometimes it might require one or two tools added to that process to get to that quality level. If you don't need that quality level, cycle time comes into play. We don't do that. We are cognizant of the cycle time requirements for the customer. So we guarantee cycle time and quality.
Now that we understand what a turnkey is and what it isn't, we want to talk about the deliverables that are associated with any turnkey. The first of these is the machining process. So it's important to note that the machining process actually starts in the proposal phase. Makino does not typically provide just a swag for the cycle time. We, in most conditions or most situations, are going to provide a cycle time that is detailed and accounts for every tool required to manufacture your part. So we've already started the process development at this point, and what's typically done is the project team takes that development once the turnkey becomes an order, and they build on that. So what you're seeing here is some of the documentation that is supplied and provided throughout the turnkey process. This is a PowerPoint document that is used with all turnkeys to define the process, define the tooling. You see clips from the actual part print with the tolerances involved. And this is a building block, a tool that our application engineers use to evolve that process from the beginning to the end to the final optimized solution. Next, let's talk about our cutting tools. So with the cutting tools, we're able to provide cutting tools from any manufacturer. We want to work with our customers to understand their preferences for tool suppliers. And in many cases, we're able to provide tooling that is very familiar to our customers. This helps with their support down the road. Once we've defined that, we will get into the detailed designs of each tool. And in many cases for turnkeys, quite a bit of the tooling does involve custom designs. So in order to get the best cycle time possible, we are going to be using combination tooling. Our engineers will specify that tooling, work with the tooling suppliers to make sure that all of the tolerances are correct, and we will meet the requirements on your part print. Once we get through that phase, we'll go through an approval process where we like to get the customer involved. We want your opinion. We want to provide tooling that you're comfortable with and that everyone agrees will be successful for the project. After that approval phase, we obviously go into the build phase and we'll have the tools built and delivered from the preferred supplier. Next, let's talk about work holding a bit. So work holding can be one of the more complex aspects of any turnkey, as you well know. Similar to the tooling, we like to understand customer preferences. If you have a preferred fixture supplier, if not, Makino certainly has several fixture suppliers that we would recommend. We will take the concept that is usually provided at the proposal stage, and we will turn that concept into a detailed design. Once we have that detailed design, we will go through an approval process again with the customer. So again, we're going to emphasize the customer involvement, the customer buy-in to the solution that's being provided. Once we have that established and everyone agrees, we will move on to the build stage with the fixtures. Now let's move to NSEED program and simulation. So as part of any project, we provide the complete NSEED programs. Makino Application Engineers typically use Mastercam to develop these programs. This allows us to use the 3D tool models and fixture models to simulate the process before we ever put any hardware on the machine. And what this does, it allows us to check for clearances between tooling and the fixtures. It allows us to check the strokes on the machine and the access to make sure we can reach all areas of the part safely without any kind of interference. We also build in safety checks. So we have different ways that we've learned over the years that we can make the program easier for our customers to use. We're going to check tool data. We're going to check work offset data and make sure that no one's fat-fingered in an incorrect value. In addition, we typically provide a detailed restart routine, which allows the operator a very simple way to recover the machine and restart the machine in the case of an alarm or an interruption. And then finally, during this phase, we begin the optimization process. So our engineers are familiar with all of the cycle time saving M codes available with the Makino Pro 6, as well as other functionality of the control that can optimize the process and help us minimize that cycle time. So once we're through all of this, the next phase would be debug and runoff. So this is the next deliverable we want to talk about. When we look at debug and runoff, it obviously includes the setup, the debug, the dial-in. So this is where the rubber hits the road. We actually take all of these process concepts and designs, we put them on the machine, and we begin our debug process. So we ensure that the program runs properly, at which point we begin our dial-in phase. This becomes an iterative phase where we check for part quality, but once we reach part quality and we're providing a good quality part, then the focus becomes cycle time. And in many cases, we have to iterate back and forth between focus on quality, focus on cycle time, in order to get to the optimized solution where we have both quality and cycle time. So that's part of the process that gives you the best solution in the end. Now, as part of this process, it results in a final statistical capability runoff. So we do this both at Makino and at the customer. As I mentioned, typically on the first machine at Makino and then at all machines at the customer's facility. The final stage to our turnkey deliverables is the documentation and training. When we talk about documentation, we obviously have machine manuals that will come with the machine. Those are the standard manuals that everyone receives with the machine. In addition to that, there will be a turnkey specific manual. This manual contains the details of your part process, including tooling designs, fixture designs, both 2D and 3D for those, as well as NC programs and any kind of process schematics or process listings. In addition to the documentation, we also provide training. So there is standard Makino training for machine operation, programming classes. In addition to that, as part of the turnkey, we like to provide an informal sort of training that is specific to the turnkey. So during the setup at our facility in Mason, Ohio here, we invite the customer to be part of that and to learn the process as it's developed here and run off. And then at the final installation, we obviously will ask that the customer participate in all of the setup and runoff. As mentioned previously, each project is assigned a project manager. So along with the project manager, there is a team of individuals who is assembled for the particular project, and they all report through that project manager as the single point of contact. So for you as the customer, what this means is you have one point of contact in that project manager that you can go to for all of your needs regarding the project. An important part of this is the fact that all of these individuals reside at our North American headquarters in Mason, Ohio. So we have the complete team under one roof here, makes for a great single source and allows for collaboration on our part and a much tighter knit group, right, that works very well together. Now let's hear from Mike Boyd and Bob Kuzner, who will speak more about this dedicated team.
So our application engineers are required to do many different things over the course of a project. Our projects have a lot of depth and they're very broad. So when we look at application engineers, their skills, their knowledge, their abilities, their competencies, really it comes down to critical and creative thinking. You know, a lot of people can set up a machine, a lot of people can program, a lot of people can assemble cutting tools, things like that. But our engineers not only do that, but they take it to the next level. They look for the best ways to do things. Their troubleshooting skills are impeccable. That creative and critical thinking really sets us apart from everyone else.
What really makes a difference is we have a dedicated team that works on nothing but fixtures at Makino. It's not something that we do every now and again, it's something that we do every day. We have two people dedicated to that on that team with over 60 years of experience in work holding. We work hand in hand with our applications engineers who have dedicated tooling designers. So we're work on fixtures and tooling together concurrently so that we make sure that we give the best solution possible.
Now that we've detailed the specifics of a Makino Turnkey, it's important to note that each solution is custom tailored to your specific application. For instance, you may have specifications, internal specifications and/or customer specifications that need to be met. Makino is able to review these specifications and provides solutions and compliance with these types of specifications as part of the turnkey. Additionally, the process, as we mentioned before, it will be tailored to your preferences as a customer. So preferred tooling suppliers, preferred fixturing types and suppliers, everything will be custom tailored to meet your needs. And along with that, this kind of brings back into play what we've mentioned before. Customer involvement is critical. Makino needs our customers to be involved in these turnkeys to be as successful as we're capable of being. With your input, we can provide solutions that will be reliable and robust for many years to come. Now let's talk about some real-world case studies. This first example is a motorcycle cylinder. So it's run on 3 A71s at our customer, and a couple unique aspects to this project. The first being that it utilizes a closed-loop boring process. So what that means is we have an external gauge that communicates with the machine, and once the machine knows the gauge result, we are able to adjust the boring bar. So we've got a special boring bar. It's capable of rough and finish on the same bar. It's a coolant activated system. So we rough bore in and we finish bore on the way out. And it also has an adjustment mechanism. So we're able to provide that closed loop process. What this does for the customer is it minimizes the amount of intervention required by the operator. So when we put a new boring bar with fresh inserts in the machine, we're able to run that tool through the full life of that insert without adjustments, and we're still maintaining a very tight bore tolerance there. The next thing that we did as part of this turnkey it's a bit unique is with respect to the fixturing. So we have a unique fixture that utilizes clamps directly at each of the bolt locations on the cylinder, and they apply the same amount of pressure that cylinder would see in an actual assembly. What this means is when we bore the part, we maintain a better cylindricity and roundness for that bore. And ultimately, when the cylinder is moved to the honing cell, the honing process becomes much, much shorter because we have that ideal situation with the part restrained and a better roundness on the bore. So there's less material in the end for the honing. We can dial that in much tighter, and the customer saves quite a bit of time on the honing side of the equation. The next case study we want to look at here is a cylinder head. So in this case, again, we're producing on A71NX machines, one machine in this case. Unique to this process were the cam bores. So a bit of a challenging feature here. You can see the cam bores on the top of the part in yellow. They are a blind access. We only have access from one side of the part. This meant that 13-to-1 L to D can be quite a bit challenging. When it was originally quoted, we quoted a process that utilized a very robust solution, but it was a bit time consuming the way it was processed. So throughout the process of tooling development, our application engineers were able to work with one of our tool suppliers and come up with this guide padded bar that you see in the picture here. Actually several guide padded bars that are used to semi-finish and finish these features. And we were able to incorporate multiple inserts on the semi-finish passes along with the guide pads, which allowed for much faster processing of this part and ultimately resulted in a cycle time savings of 50 seconds faster than the expected quoted cycle time. So in this case, we over-delivered to our customer, added to their bottom line, and allowed them to produce more parts in a shorter time frame. Now let's hear some more turnkey examples from our subject matter experts.
So when it comes to NC programs, we have many years of experience here at Makino in many different markets and many different industries. And what it comes down to, we like to have redundant checks within our CNC programs. We've developed many macro statements, macro programs around checking things like tool lengths, work offsets, double checking to make sure nothing gets fat-fingered and there are no problems within the process. We'll take that to the next level again and implement things such as probing routines to look at different part types, to analyze where the part is in the work zone, update our work offsets. We even take the probing routines that we create and look at part inspection within the machining center. So our application engineers really dig in and not only provide tool paths, but a whole different bundle around it using macro statements and redundant checks.
Well, one of the things that I'm fortunate to be able to have is at Makino is our fixture hydraulic unit system. We had some parts where we had a lot of stock in critical bores that had to be removed, so we had to clamp these parts at a very high pressure in order to keep the part from moving to rough out these bores. But when clamping at that high pressure, it kind of egg-shaped the bores a little bit. So we're able to, with our machine, we're able to clamp at a high pressure and then lower the pressure down to a much lower pressure when we're doing the finishing, which alleviated the ovality issues we were seeing on those bores. So it's a wonderful tool to have in your pocket as a fixture designer.
So after learning a little more about Makino turnkeys, you may be asking yourself, why consider a turnkey? I'd like to provide some reasons here that we think are important and useful reasons to consider a turnkey. The first would be risk. So obviously with any new part, new program, there's significant risk involved from the time frame to the throughput to the quality. All of those things put pressure on you to deliver. Additionally, resources may be an issue. Several customers have issues with resources, the amount of resources. It seems these days everyone is a bit short-handed. In the case of a turnkey, you're able to utilize Makino's dedicated resources to provide a solution that doesn't need to be engineered by your internal resources. Next is single point of responsibility. So Makino, as mentioned previously, Makino is responsible for the entire project, start to finish. Our team of engineers works with the project manager to take you from cradle to grave with very little requirements on your side. When there are issues, you have one source to go back to, and that is Makino. So there's no finger pointing, there's no issues, figuring out how to move a project forward when there are things that need to be resolved. Our application engineers are machine experts. So with the purchase of a Makino machine, you expect performance. Purchasing a turnkey along with that ensures that you will get the max performance that the machine is capable of. In addition to the max performance of the machine, we also will provide, as part of our application engineering service, we have many innovative solutions. We've talked about a couple of those here. Our engineers have a breadth of experience that helps us when we brainstorm and bring ideas to the table. So we can work with you to provide the most innovative solution and the best reliable solution for a long-term program. And finally, Makino has successfully completed over 350 turnkeys over the years. So we have the experience, we know what it takes to complete turnkeys, and we've proven in the industry that Makino is willing to stand by you and stick around until your project is truly completed. So on a final note, I'd just like to ask a question to all of you, and that's how can we help? So essentially, we're ready to help with all of your new applications and projects. we just ask that you contact either your local Makino sales representative or send us a note on our website. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today and listening with us. We appreciate everybody who's taken time out of their schedule. So now we've got some time for questions here. If you have any questions based on our presentation today, feel free to enter those in the Q&A section at the top right of your screen. You can just type in your questions and I will respond to those. While we're waiting on some of those, I don't have any questions at the moment, but I would like to talk about a couple things that come up frequently with customers for different projects. So the first is with respect to prototype parts or maybe first article type parts. You know, you may be asking, okay, this is great. You're going to provide me with my production solution, but what about those types of articles that need to be delivered typically sooner in this process? So that is something that we are familiar with. If we know about this, when we actually quote a turnkey, we can include provision for, you know, a number of prototype parts or your first article pieces. That is not a problem. We just need to make sure it fits in with the timing of the machine and obviously the equipment associated, right? The tooling and the fixtures. But if we can work it into the schedule, we're happy to do that. If this is something that pops up maybe later in your project, we can add that into a project, right? The funds would not be included in that case in the turnkey quote, but we could certainly add that, determine what type of engineering activities required to produce what you need. And we've done this on several applications for different customers. So, you know, as we mentioned, we want to work with you and be your provider and help you with any kind of issues and, you know, surprises that may come up along the way. We can work with you through all that. It's typically not a problem. Okay. The next question that we hear a bit from some of our customers is, you know, so I order a turnkey, how much am I going to have to be involved? What's actually required from a customer perspective, you know, with the turnkey? So as we mentioned, we definitely want our customers to be involved in this process. It's critical for the success of the project. And frankly, you'll end up with a much better solution if you work with us and provide just some very basic items. You know, up front, we'd like to know, what are your current problems, concerns? Maybe you machine similar parts now. You've had issues with certain tools or fixturing. You know, let us know what that is sooner rather than later, and we can definitely help you improve upon those things. In addition, we want to know what your preferences are, what your typical mode of operation is, you know, how you program, what are your preferred tooling suppliers, and we will do our best to fit our solution into your comfort zone, if you will. So that's key. And you know, it doesn't mean that you need to be responsible for all of those tools or the fixturing and worry about whether it's going to meet the requirement. That is fully on Makino. All we ask is that, you know, you just provide higher level input as to, you know, preferences and any challenges you've met in the past. The final issue here or question here, I guess, that we can talk about is as far as support after the runoff, after the project's complete, signed off, what type of support does Makino offer? So we will be your partner moving forward. We're always going to be here for you. Just because the project's over does not mean you cannot continue to reach out to us. So, you know, for simpler matters, it's very easy to contact your application engineering team. If you've got questions with maybe the program, something with respect to the process, maybe you're having a new problem that arose, you know, after you went into production. We will be here to help. We're a phone call, email away, happy to help and address those types of issues. If you need additional support, maybe on site, right? And maybe you're going to implement a new part feature and you need a little bit of assistance. As we mentioned in the presentation, we're able to provide that application support. We typically do that on a weekly basis. It's basically a time and material type situation at that point, but we're happy to come in and help you do that for any additional requirements there. So looks like that's about it on the question side. Again, appreciate you joining today, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and have a great day.